I didn't think of it at the time as this, but looking back on it, it was a unique angle that I brought to the market. And that is probably why I saw more success, because it did take a unique angle that no one else was really talking about and was able to gain some traffic from it.
Hello and welcome to the Jumpstart podcast with Jeffalytics. I'm your host, Jeff Sauer. Today, for our 42nd episode, we'll talk with Josh Shogren, a college student and the founder of Passion into Paychecks. Josh and I, we'd met just recently, but I think you're really going to love hearing his story. Unlike many of my guests who have had long and established careers in the world of marketing and analytics, Josh is still in college. But don't let his age fool you. Josh is wise beyond his years, and I found our conversation to be incredibly insightful. So how did I end up having a college student on my podcast? Easy. Josh tweeted me that he liked one of my articles, and I clicked on a link to his bio. After about 20 minutes reading his background and his case study on his website, I was hooked. This guy was building his own little website empire, all while going to college. Now on his website, Passion into Paychecks, you can see a case study about how Josh invested in a website and he turned it into a profit-generating machine. I was impressed by the transparency that he put into these case studies on his site, as well as the community that he's established. A lot of people are invested in his success. Josh provides monthly updates on his website about how his other websites are doing, and he has other valuable insights about what's working and what's not working in the world of niche website marketing. So be sure to check out Josh's site and the other resources we provide in the show notes so that you can read all about his adventure. Now, of course, this isn't Josh's first website. That dates much further back than him being in college, but I'll let Josh share that story with you. If you want to hear an inspiring tale of how a college student is building a long-term business strategy, then you're going to love my interview with Josh Shogren. And be sure to share this with any college students or young people you know who are wondering about what it's like to have a career in online marketing, because Josh is the real deal. Visit jeffalytics.com/PIP for show notes. Okay, so we're here today with Josh Shogren. Josh, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. We just met each other's acquaintance just a couple of weeks ago. You'd come to my website and you tweeted me.
And I came to your website, and let me tell you, I was shocked by how much Google Analytics stuff I did not know. I've been using Google Analytics for 4 or 5 years, and I'm shocked by how much I didn't know by coming to your site. So that's what initially led me to you. So yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's sort of how this whole sharing community works, right? Like you went to my site and you're like, hey, I like what you're doing. And then I went and looked at your Twitter profile and I clicked onto your website, because I always like to just see who these people are that are talking to you on the internet. And I learned about Passion into Paychecks and your journey. And I was like, I got to get this guy on my podcast. I really want to hear his story. And so I'm glad we're able to make it work.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, so let's start out. I know you're at least on your website it says that you're 20. I'm not sure if you're still 20 or...
I'm actually 21. I need to update that. I actually turned 21 recently.
So we'll update your website, but you're 21 years old, and you're in college right now?
Yep, I'm currently a junior in college right now.
And you have this website that's just fascinating to me, because it's talking about how I'm not going to ruin the story. I'm going to let you tell me the story, but basically you're doing things at 21 that a lot of people wish they would have done, at 31, right? So it's a lot of really interesting hands-on learning that you have. So the first question, though, is when did you realize that you were interested in the online world?
It was a while back for me. I got started, I would say 7th grade. So I was about 13 or 14 years old. And my very first website was about how to fix Xboxes, because at the time I had a broken Xbox and I learned how to fix it online. And that actually ended up turning into a little business for a few years. I actually would buy broken Xboxes, fix them up, and then resell them on eBay and Craigslist and stuff. But keeping it online, I was just using online resources to fix my Xbox. And I thought, hey, I'm going to teach people some stuff that's not online and create a website around it. So that's my very first website that got me interested in it, on like learning how to set up the website, create content, all just the basics of building a website. And really the very first thing that got me intrigued ever was I earned 1 cent from AdSense one day when I woke up. There was 1 cent in my account, and it probably wasn't even a real click. Like, it was just 1 cent randomly, but it like that triggered in me that I can make money online. I mean, if I can make 1 cent, I can make $1 million, you know? So that's kind of where that switch turned on my head, where I'm like, I can actually make money online. It was almost like an epiphany for me, and that is what triggered my like learning and passion for like kind of taking things to the next level and actually earning good money from it. So I messed around with that website for a little bit, maybe like a year or two, just learning the very basic resources. But eventually I got into, it was probably 2 or 3 years later, I built my next website. And this time it was about Osgood sliders. I'm not sure if you know what that is.
Yeah, I do actually. It's like a knee like something around your knees or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was very active and played basketball when I was younger, and it's basically like a lump that goes on both your knees or one of your knees, from being active during puberty, and it's really painful to deal with, and I had to deal with that. So I created a website about like how I was dealing with it, some stuff to help people out, and that was my first successful website that actually was able to earn good money, get good traffic, and that is where I learned a lot of my stuff about like SEO, link building, creating actually useful and helpful content, and ranking in Google, AdSense, and all that type of stuff. So actually learning monetization skills on that website. So that was kind of my transition into, okay, this is fun to learn about, and actually transitioned into, okay, I'm making good money now. I wouldn't say good money, but at the time, being a freshman in high school, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. You know, any money's good money back then, huh?
And so that just kind of fueled my drive to learn more and scale what I was doing. And since I was making money, I thought I could make even more money doing it.
Yeah. So even going back to the first site.
Yep.
Did you have any fear at all in putting yourself out there, or was it just sort of being young and not really knowing? Did you realize that there are people out there who might actually care, or that might actually come across what you were doing?
At the time, I didn't care. I thought it was just cool making a website. I honestly probably didn't even think about people even reading my website. I just thought it was cool that I could go type it into online and find it on the internet. That was the cool part to me. And I didn't even come to that realization until my next website, which was where like, what would people be interested and want to know about this that I could help them with? And that's kind of where I got into my customer's head and audience's head and figured out, how can I help them?
Yeah, that's really cool. And you're going through the struggle yourself, or at least, you know, looking for answers. And then was there any good websites out there, any good resources available that helped solve the problem you were you know, or helped you deal with what you were going through? Or was that the main reason why you created it, because there was nothing else out there that did a good job?
Yeah, so for both websites, there was resources out there, but I just felt like they didn't cover everything, and they didn't cover my specific problems that I was going through. So I feel like I didn't think of it at the time as this, but looking back on it, it was a unique angle that I brought to the market, and that is probably why saw more success, is because it did take a unique angle that no one else was really talking about, and that was able to gain some traffic from it.
Yeah. So when you say unique angle, like that's something that you can read a lot now if you just read any internet marketing blog. It's like, be unique, have a voice, you know, niche down. There's all this advice that goes out there. How does somebody who's a freshman in high school even come to that realization? I don't know many people who come to that realization and you know, by 30. So curious about who influenced you, or how did you get to be that perceptive so young?
That's a good question. I don't know if, like I said, if I was fully aware of it at the time, that I was really had that unique angle, but I did know that no one else out there, all the websites out there were like WebMD, and they just gave broad overview of it. And I brought a specific actionable type of content that people could actually use and benefit from right away. And I didn't find that anywhere else really. So that's where I said, if this helped me, I'm going to help other people that may not know about this, and other things like that. So that's where and I really didn't know that it was a unique angle. I just knew that this is what worked for me, and it might work for other people.
Yeah. I think that's what works in a lot of cases. People don't always realize that, but it really just comes down to writing the answers that you wish you had, or at least wanting to help other people, just genuinely wanting to help them out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that transitions I'm going to skip a few steps, but that transitions straight into my website now, Passion to Paychecks. And pretty much everything I write about is just documenting my journey, documenting my lessons I've learned, and just helping people learn from what I'm going through. I'm talking about things that I'm doing and living, and that's the same exact thing that brought back to all the websites I've ever created. It's just sharing my point of view on a certain topic, and just that alone makes it unique. You don't have to have crazy awesome information. It just has to be a unique angle that no one else is covering. And if you just use the information that you know and it's inside your head, that's a unique angle right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also just the way that you write your website and the way that you're sharing it, we're invested in it. So the reader is invested in you and seeing how it goes and wants to see you succeed and wants to share in it with you. And that's one of the pieces that I think a lot of people go into this thinking that there's a formula to it, but really the formula is to get others to invest in what you have to say, right? That's really what readership does for you.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Cool. So yeah, I know you said you skipped over a few things, but yeah, basically working on websites and then knowing that you can have some success, that you're able to work in this online world, that it's definitely a place that people are making money, and you have had some success making money. So how do you transition from there? Do you just keep on making more websites, or when did you get into the actual passion into Paychecks on your timeline?
So I'll connect the stories between the second website built and Passion and Paychecks, because that's really where I saw that, okay, I might not have to ever get a job again, like ever, So like that's when I started making money that was to the point where like I don't need to get a summer job anymore. So what happened after the second website? That second website actually ended up getting penalized by Google after a few years, just from experimenting and trying to build links, and ended up doing something that Google didn't like, and it ended up getting penalized. So after that, I started getting into like niche websites and just finding niches that I could create content around based on keyword research. So this is steps away from my original process of writing the content based on my point of view. I kind of took the point of writing content based on keyword research and making money from the websites. And so I no longer wrote the content, I outsourced it, and I built a couple websites up from scratch during high school and the first year of college, and I was actually able to sell my first website for $15,000 in freshman year of college. Wow. And that is where that got me intrigued into the buying and selling websites, and buying, growing, and then selling websites. So that is what led me into the whole journey of Passion into Paychecks and actually buying websites and that whole process. So like I said, so freshman year sold my very first website. And then a year later, I sold another website that I created from scratch for $35,000. And that was kind of like, those two sales were the turning point in terms of what I'm doing and what I spend my time on. So I no longer start websites from scratch unless I truly like the niche that I'm going into. I now only buy websites and buy online businesses that already have that foundation built, and I can apply the skills that I know to that foundation that's already built and grow it in a short period of time, instead of waiting 12 months, 2 years until it's doing anything if you start a website from scratch.
Yeah. You know that there's people who are willing to spend $15,000. There's websites that are out there, and you know what it takes. And you're saying basically, if I buy a website for $6,000, which is what you've done, that it's better. It's a lot easier to go from 6,000 to 60,000 than it is from 0 to 6,000, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a really good realization, and I think that other people should consider that as well. And that is, a lot of websites are people's passion projects that they put a lot of time into, but it's more of a hobby or something that they do on the side, and then taking something that's had moderate success and then putting, like you said, your specialized knowledge to it, or just a new method or a new perspective to it, can really make things grow.
Yeah.
Even more. Curious about, one, how the heck did you learn how to do this? Who are your influencers that you paid attention to? And then the second question I have is, from a monetization point or perspective, how do you even know what a website's worth? So just valuation and that type of stuff.
So I originally was like learned from a ton of people. It's so long ago at this point that I'm trying to remember the very first few people. I would probably say Niche Pursuits, Niche Site Project, Smart Passive Income with Pat Flynn was a good resource for me back then. Those were like kind of my introduction to like, there's other people doing this. How can I get better? How can I improve my skills? And those kind of led me down the paths to all types of other resources that I needed to learn about. So if I need to learn about search engine optimization, I went to Moz, or I went to all the things that all the SEO related blogs. If I need to learn link building, I would go all to those types of blogs. So that's kind of where I got started, but then I branched off depending on what I needed to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Who you learn from today versus who you might have learned from 5 years ago, it always changes.
Yes.
But I think I remember my discovery period as well, just like, hey, I can make money online. It was very much, you read one thing and then you read another and then you just get addicted to it. And you're just like always trying to find as much as you can. And you just come up with people who are in the position you want to be, or the people that you want to, that you want to be your peers, and you just find it and follow it and just keep on seeing what they have to say.
Exactly. And what really got me started, like once I found people to follow and learn from, is that they often had like plans that they had laid out specifically, like do this, do this, do this. And that kind of gave me a roadmap of how to get started. And that was really kind of built the foundation for me. And then once I had that foundation, I was able to branch off and learn various skills to improve upon that initial roadmap that they had laid out.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's really important for beginning people that don't know where to start, is to kind of learn the very basics of exactly what you should be doing, and then build upon that basic knowledge on like, depending on the project and depending on what you're working on, what type of skill set you need to learn to improve upon that.
Yeah, for sure. Because a case study itself, or even a step-by-step plan, it's showing what used to work for that person up until the point when they wrote it for you. You can't recreate their conditions in the same way. So you have to sort of take it as a guideline and then run with it from there, for sure.
Yep. And then so to touch on your second question about how to value websites and how I even figured out that you could sell websites. So I initially heard of Empire Flippers at the time. I'm not sure if you've heard of them.
Yeah, for sure. They're in the they sponsor a lot of the Dynamite Circle stuff. That's one of the groups that I'm part of.
Yep. So back when I actually heard them, they were called AdSense Flippers. And so that's where I learned that you could even sell a website. But at the time, I really didn't have any websites that I thought were worth anything. The time I actually got into thinking like, all right, how much is my website worth, is when my website was making, I think, $500. I'm like, this has to be worth something.
Yeah.
And I dove into all the research, and at the time I came to find out that your website is worth at a multiple of 20x your last 3 months average profit. So I know that's kind of a mouthful. Mm-hmm. So basically it's just your average profit for the last 3 months multiplied by 20. And that is, at the time of when I sold my first website, that was what the going rate was for websites.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you will probably see closer to 25 to 30x multiple on that. Yeah.
And that's after hosting fees and your traffic acquisition costs and everything.
Yeah, so basically, that's profit. So that's after all your expenses. And of course, there are outliers to this. Not every website is going to be valued the same. Some websites are way above the 30x multiple. Some are way below. And it just really depends on a ton of factors, such as how you get your traffic, how you monetize it, what type of website it is. Is it a software as a service? Is it an e-commerce store? And just a whole lot of other things that go into the valuation. But that 25 to 30x multiple is kind of the range that will fit most of the websites.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's funny. Speaking of the Dynamite Circle, I was talking to Dan Norris, who's one of the guys he's in the group, and he was talking about selling his company, and we just had the same conversation about what a company is worth, and there's all kinds of formulas and everything, but then there's a key point that he made, and that is, if you're somebody else's strategic acquisition, then there's almost the sky's the limit, right? If somebody really sees you as a part of their strategic development, and they want that asset, it becomes much more valuable. So there's standard valuations, and then there's strategic ones. And I think that anybody going into a niche or into an area, if your goal is to sell, which I don't think that selling something should be somebody's goal ultimately, it should be to make a profitable business, right? That can produce profits infinitely, or not, into the indefinite future. But at the same time, if selling is even on your radar, you should go into something that you think somebody might buy then, like in an area where somebody might actually purchase this, where there's big enough companies with budgets or with the ability and the means to acquire it.
Absolutely. And that is something that I've started to take into consideration when I'm looking to buy websites, is that I could almost be like the mediator between the person that wants to sell the website, and I could take it from the point that it's at and get it to a higher level where bigger companies are actually interested in acquiring that business, because it's to a point where it's valuable to them to acquire it. It's not too small where they don't really care about you, but you're big enough, but not huge yet, but you're big enough to that where they care about you and will be willing to pay top dollar, because it is, like you said, a strategic acquisition that will help them more than just a random business that's making money.
So you're basically like a private equity firm, but but on websites. That's pretty fascinating. And I mean, these are things that I'm realizing at 35 that I'm impressed that you're getting there at 21. That's pretty cool to hear. Okay, so and then monetization wise, is it? I'm guessing the two main ways to do it are AdSense and then Amazon ads or Amazon Associates program. Or is there any other way that you are finding to be successful?
Yeah, so definitely. So Amazon Affiliate is a huge affiliate program that pretty much will work for any website in any market, just because it has so many products. So that is definitely a top monetization strategy. AdSense is a top monetization strategy for the website that I actually have in my case study on my website. So that is mainly monetized with AdSense. But I mean, those are the two most popular, I'd say, but it also depends on the website. Sometimes you might be able to sell private advertising to companies that want to advertise on your website with banner ads or sponsored posts. You might be selling a physical product. I've actually started to sell physical products on the same website that I'm doing the case study on. And that's a cool little revenue stream that I didn't even think about when I first started, and that's adding up to it. So, and something that I think is good to have is a diversified revenue stream. I don't think you should have all 100% of your revenue coming from Amazon Associates, just because you never know what's going to happen. I mean, they could shut down tomorrow. I doubt it, but they very could. Actually, just recently they changed their commission rates for their affiliates, and it's no longer based on how many units you sell in a month. It's now based on what category your product is in. And so for a lot of websites out there that were making 8.5%, because that's the top tier based on the volume, their category could be in a category that's now worth 3% flat, a flat 3% now, and that killed their business. So I think it's very important to diversify where you're making your money, so that if that does happen, you can still be perfectly fine, and then it gives you enough time to find a revenue source to make up for that. Yeah,
no, it's funny. I used to do AdSense sites significantly, and it was thousands of dollars a month in revenue, and then just changing what constituted a click on AdSense cut my revenue in half or 3/4 overnight. And it's like, you do this thing enough, you realize that you do need to diversify. And my diversification was actually to start an agency and to work there for 10 years. But, it's funny how people diversify and how you deal with these things as you go along.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, like you said, you were in AdSense and you learned that, like, wow, this happened to me and I need to learn to diversify. And I think that everyone eventually learns that lesson the hard way. For anyone that's just getting started, they think that just trying to make any money is good. And it is good just to start making anything from your online websites or your online business. But I do think that at some point you need to think about diversifying, just because you don't want something that you've spent a bunch of time working on to be wiped out in a matter overnight, So I think that is an important thing that a lot of people overlook, especially at the beginning.
Yeah, it's like basically sitting at a blackjack table and doubling down and doubling down.
Yep.
And when the cards turn, you want to have tucked away some money, or at least had some kind of options. Great. So Passion into Paychecks. I mean, that's how I found you, and that's really interesting. So can you give the elevator pitch or the quick rundown of how this worked with I think your parents are involved, and just how did this part work?
Yeah, so just to clear it up, Passion Paychecks is a website that I pretty much just document everything I'm doing on. So that case study that I'm doing with the website investing is just one aspect of it. I do have a couple other case studies on there, and it's basically just me documenting everything I'm doing online. So the case study with my parents investing into a website started, when was this? It was probably a year and a half ago. It was the summer going into my sophomore year of college. So yeah, about a year and a half ago, they saw the success that I was having I sold the website previously, like 6 months before that, for $15,000. So they were interested in that. They knew I was making money online with other websites. And so they know everything that's going on and they're interested in it, but they also flip houses themselves. So they find houses that are broken down, that are mistreated, and buy them for cheap. And my dad and mom go in there and fix it up and then sell it or rent it out. And the funny thing is, like, that's very similar to what buying and growing websites is like. Is you find a website that's kind of been neglected, you buy it, you fix it up, and you kind of either rent it out or aka just hold it onto it for its monthly cash flow, or you can sell it, which is the same as selling a house. So the thing is, they were very familiar with the concept behind it, and that's what intrigued them in it. And when they compared the returns that they're getting on a house, buying and selling a house, compared to buying and selling a website, the websites blew it out of the water. So that they understood the process and they saw the returns that website investing were able to get. So that's how they got initially interested in it, and that is how I started to look for a website. They said they were interested, so I went out and started browsing Flippa and any other marketplace, trying to find a website. And important thing is to mention, just really briefly, is that for people that are interested in buying a website, is you're not going to find a website that you should buy the very first hour that you look. It takes me months to find, looking at Flippa every single day, to find a website that I think is worth purchasing. So it's not something that you can just go to Flippa right now and find, oh, this looks like a good one, and buy it, because more than likely it's not a good one and you're probably getting ripped off. So it's very important to understand that the good deals come, but they don't come every single day or every week. You got to be patient and wait for those deals. So that's what I did. I waited for a good deal to come along, and I bought a website that was making $500 a month for $6,000. So based on the multiple that we were talking about before, if it's just using the 20x multiple, that website should at least have been valued at $10,000. But I was able to pick it up for $6,000, and it was making $500 a month profit. So just right there, just from buying it, I already got a super good deal. If I just wanted to flip that after 3 months and keep it at $500 a month, I would make at least $10,000 to $15,000. I guess I wouldn't make profit, but I'd be able to sell it for $10,000 to $15,000. So that's why we bought it. And we've held it since then. My parents have made their money back and then some, just from the monthly profits. And it's going really well, and we're probably planning to sell probably within the next year or so, but I mean, things always change and who knows what's going to happen, but things have been worked out really well.
So what do you, when you get something, let's keep the analogy of flipping houses, and let's talk about like how to flip a site then. So you flip a house, sometimes you can get by, like it's a foreclosure and you just need paint and you need a few things. You put some stainless steel appliances in there and granite countertops, and then you sell it for $50,000 more in a month, right? And then there's other ones that are more involved, but then a flipper probably wouldn't want to even have those, wouldn't want to be there. So do you look at a website and just sort of say, hey, this thing is undervalued, so I know I can make a profit, and it just needs a coat of paint, and I know the best painter in town? Is that sort of how you look at this thing? Or you're like, hey, this might take a little bit more work, but the reward is going to be so high because of this or that?
I think that, but everything you just said was absolutely correct. There is just a lot of variables that go into it that change the situation slightly, but I think that looking at a website thinking that this is where applying a specialized skill that to a website that you're buying is so important. I think that is probably the most important thing that determines if you're going to have success buying a website, is that when you buy a website, can you apply the skills that you know to this website to grow it? So for example, I'm really good at keyword research, content marketing, link building, and figuring out where are the gaps that this website is missing in terms of the content, and what could I do to fill those gaps with content and reach a wider audience. So if I find a website that is super thin on content, but is making good money from that very scarce amount of pages, I know that I can build that website out with a bunch of content and really grow that website based on the keyword research that I've done before buying it. So that's kind of where my initial skill set came into play, and that has helped me. Since then, I've developed more skills just from buying websites and being involved with different projects and things like that. But that is what I got started, and I think that is so important, because you need to be able to have a clear and concrete way of being able to improve something that you're buying right away, or at least have a plan to improve it, instead of just, I'm going to buy it and just hold on to it even though I don't know anything about the website or how to grow it. That's never going to work out, because eventually it's going to just decline until it makes nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Just like anything, you need to do due diligence on a house. You need to get an inspection. You need to get, insurance or whatever you need to do in order to to mitigate risk. And people, even flipping, people, when the market's good, people will see other people making money doing this, and they'll just assume that, oh, well, if this person says they're making money flipping houses, then I will. And then they don't realize, or they don't know what they don't know. They don't know that if you sell it right away, then you don't have to make a second mortgage payment, or there's certain grace period stuff with flipping houses that you don't, like, they don't tell you all that in the case studies, or they try to, but again, recreating somebody else's conditions. So you have to really understand what you're doing. And also, I think that some people might get greedy and just see that somebody did this and think that it's easy money, not knowing that there's no such thing as easy money, right?
Exactly. And that's the thing. I just want to take on what you just said, is that it's easy money, is because, like, people look at my case study or other things I'm doing, they're like, wow, you're making an incredible return on your money in such a short amount of time. And they think that anyone can do that if they have 10 grand to invest in a website. But what they don't realize is that all the things that led up to that, it's like, I spent 5 years building my skill set to be able to make these changes happen on this website and improve it. And I spent 3 years researching Flippa every single day and waiting for a good deal to come along so I could get that really good return on my investment. It's like they only see the very end results, which it's not their fault. It's just that they haven't been in it the entire time like I have. And that is misleading sometimes, and that can be a problem. But that's why I stress that it's like, you can't just hop into buying a website and hope that it's going to work out, because you're more likely going to just burn whatever money you just purchased that website for and just burn it on fire, because it's not going to be what you expect it to be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you see that with, like, Pat Flynn's is somebody that I learned from as well. Or, I'll read his website, and you see how much he's making, and then it's like, well, I want to do that. And of course everybody wants to do that, but also, he makes it look so easy, right? That's sort of the thing. It's like, there's nothing passive about passive income. Like, that's the thing that everybody needs to realize, is that none of these things are by chance. There's very little luck in these areas. It's like you said, it's scouring for years and figuring out your model and being smart about it. So absolutely. Yeah.
And like, there is some luck involved. I do think that, I wouldn't say luck, but there is chance that when I look on Flippa for that day, I find a website that just got listed that's undervalued, and I buy it really quick. Like, that is somewhat luck, but it's also skill meeting luck, where I know that this is a super good deal. Just within 30 seconds looking at it, I'm like, I need to buy this before anyone else, because I know it's a good deal and I know I'll make money, and I can buy it before anyone else. And that's actually exactly what happened with the website that I bought for my parents, is that I bought it as soon as it was listed practically, and the person messaged me like the next day, and she's like, I had about 5 other people trying to message me and pay more than what I sold it to you for, but like, she can't sell it to them anymore because we had a binding contract and everything. But that just goes to show that you need to move quickly and act on what you know to get those kind of deals. So it was somewhat lucky that it was there, but it was years of skill building to be able to realize that it was a good deal.
Yeah, and it's probably, maybe not 10,000 hours, but probably 1,000 hours of your life
Yeah.
in order to be there at the right place in the right time to get there, learning everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's funny. So, so one thing that I think is interesting about this is that obviously, so your website does case studies about your sites, and it doesn't seem like you're publishing necessarily links to the sites, or you're sort of keeping that on the down low and anonymous or whatever you will. How do you balance working on your website, talking about your websites, and being a full-time student? How much time do you put into this, and how do you prioritize?
Yeah, good question. I would say I think that school comes fairly easy to me. I don't think that I don't need to put a ton of time into school for me to have success in it. So I don't have a lot of class. I mean, I have classes obviously, but I go to school maybe 1 or 2 hours a day. And besides that, there's not much else for me to do besides occasional homework or group projects or whatever. But for most part, it's not that much work for me to go to school full time and still run all of my businesses online. So for me, I think I was just blessed and had was able to pick things up quickly and learn quickly, and school was just never too hard for me, and that's worked out well for me now because I have a lot of other things to spend my time on than going to school. But I'm able to have success with that just because it's somewhat easy for me, which is nice.
Yeah, no, that's nice. I was the same way in college, actually. It's funny, working on my little side businesses. I didn't really do a lot of it for commercial intent, but I had some little things going on. Yeah. But you're right. You can be as busy as you want to in schooling.
Exactly.
Have you ever been tempted to just do this full time, or are you just so close to that you haven't been tempted to leave school and do this full time?
I mean, I'm tempted, but then I think that who knows what could happen. And this brings us back to the point of diversification. It's a whole different topic, but the same thing. It's like, for whatever reason, who knows what could happen with my online stuff. No matter what, if I have a degree, I'm more likely going to be able to get a job. And I feel like I'm more likely to be able to get a job with the skill set that I have from my online stuff. But having that degree is important. And I think that I might as well utilize the time while I'm here and just finish it out and get my degree. And worst case scenario, I never have to work. I mean, that's the best case scenario, really. But worst case scenario, I just fall back on that, and I'll be glad that I did. So that's kind of where my thought process is on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it's so close, and it doesn't seem like it's really. There's some things that school does get in the way, like if you're making Facebook, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there's other times where it's if you can manage it, then it's not too bad.
Yeah, I agree.
So then what happens after this? So you're in your junior year, you're going to be not graduating, but you're going to be finishing up in a month or two probably, or soon.
I'm going to finish up probably next spring. So I got like a year and a few months.
Yeah. Okay, great. So you have like the summers off, but then you'll go back to school next year. You'll finish in the spring.
Yep.
And what do you do after that? Do you just turn this into your full time? Is this your business? Do you figure out how to turn it into a business? What are you looking to do next?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's actually something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, just because I had to meet with my counselor the other day, and I planned out my schedule for the rest of my time here, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm about to graduate at some point. It's always kind of like that far off thing where like I'm going to graduate in some time, but now that I actually see like I'm going to take these many more classes and I'm going to graduate, it kind of became real to me. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. I would love to go full time with my own stuff, but then again, I don't know if that's the smartest move, and so that's something that I need to think about a little bit more. I have started to do some like consulting on the sides with people who've bought websites and need help like monetizing it or growing it, or have bought it and just have no idea what to do with it. So I've started to do that on the side. So that's something that I'm exploring right now, and might be something that becomes more of a full-time thing for me in the future, and that could be a steady source of income for me after I graduate. So there's a lot of things I'm thinking about. I'm kind of on the fence about what to do exactly, but. Well,
I was going to say, you could take the soul crushing job and then appreciate what you have more. That's one option is to try a job and see what it's like and then see if it's right for you or not. Some people just skip that step entirely, depending on how well it's going. The other thing that's difficult is cash flow, right? Like how do you going from college student to being on your own, how do you, if the sale is the big event, how does it have enough cash flow in between to make it so that it's the equivalent of having a job? Because I think that's another thing, a trap that we can all fall into, is seeing the sale price or the big outcome and then thinking that's, that doesn't last very long depending on lifestyle and stuff like that. So it's a lot of money, but it's not a lot. It's a lot of money in a lump sum, but if that's all the money that there is, it's about the same as working a salaried job if you sell 1 or 2 sites a year. So that's the hard part for a lot of people to realize, is that it's great as a side income, but as a primary income, it takes some considerations.
Absolutely. And I think the most important thing is, at least for me, if I'm going to determining whether I should get a job or not, is my monthly recurring income, because that's what's going to be coming in each month from my websites and stuff. And that is what's important. If I'm making a good amount of money reoccurring every month, then that is the sign that it's good. But like you said, if you rely on $30,000 sales here, $50,000 sale here, and make hardly any money in between, it's risky, because who knows when your next sale is going to be, you know? So I think the most important thing for me is just that reoccurring income that I can count on each month. And that is what is like vital to me to be able to determine if I should get a job or if I can go full time. Yeah.
And then, then there's there's other paths too, right? And it's to, work on monetization of your site, about monetization, right? And there's all kinds of different things you can do from that point. But I agree with you that having some kind of idea of what the income is going to be is probably a really important consideration to see if you can do it full time or not.
Yep, absolutely.
And do you plan on keeping up your case studies and sharing them out there, or are you going to do it as long as you have the sites? How do you feel about that? About updating people and sharing with them your case study versus just all your time, like time spent writing about that, as sort of time spent wasted on your business, or that you're not on your business? Yeah,
really good question. And that's actually why I haven't had an update on the website for around 5 or 6 months, because I have been spending so much time actually in my business instead of talking about it, that I really even haven't had a time to update the case study. So that is something that I wouldn't say I struggle with, but I think that is something that it takes a lot of time to put together a 3,000, 4,000 word case study update with images and my thoughts and everything. That takes time to do, and that's going to take away from what's actually making me money. So that's something that I think about a lot, but I do enjoy writing the case study updates. I do think that it's helpful for people to see what I'm doing, what I'm learning, what's going bad, what's going good, and for them to learn from me. And I think that's really cool. And I think that's something that a lot of people, or a lot of websites and blogs out there don't do. They don't talk about what they're doing. They just kind of position themselves as the authority and don't really tell anyone about what they're actually doing. And then they end up making money just from the people that are reading their website and buying their courses, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that is something that I'm not trying to do at all. I'm trying to just kind of share my story at this point. And then if some point down the line, it makes sense for me to create something that people would pay for, then I will do that. But right now I'm kind of just documenting everything and just sharing everything that I know with people.
Yeah. No, I think that's always a good way to do it. The genuine sharing and just wanting to let people see where you're going and what you're doing. But I also think that there's a temptation there, because what you're doing it has an attractive element. It attracts people. It gets people invested in you, like we said earlier in the story. I know for sure that I'm going to be waiting for that next update. Hopefully it comes around. It comes around soon. Yeah. And just seeing where it goes, because it's fascinating. I think that it's, getting an inside look at building a business is really, really fascinating, especially when you're doing it in the time, at your age too. That's really interesting to see that too. So I think, I hope you do keep it up, because I think that just looking at how many comments you get in a world where nobody comments anymore, that means people are invested in, and they're probably waiting for the next one.
Yeah, I'm actually. It's been 18 months, at the end of February. So I'm actually starting to put together the 18th update, 18 month update on that website. So I will be creating an update, and that'll be coming out probably within the next week or two. So
okay.
So yeah, definitely make sure to check that out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that hopefully you'll get some new fans from this podcast as well, and we'll look forward to that update.
Cool.
Awesome, Josh. Well, I think we're getting towards the end of our time, so thanks so much for sharing with us. This is really fascinating, and I think you have a lot of wisdom already, and it seems like you've had some good mentors and some good advice along the way too on how to build a business.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on here. I don't know if I mentioned it yet, but this is actually my very first podcast, so I'm excited to be on with you and have this be my very first podcast. I had a lot of fun, and it was awesome.
Yeah, well, you're a natural. I have a feeling this will be the first of many podcasts. Maybe we'll get you in the Tropical MBA or something too, because this is pretty good story. So
thanks. I really appreciate that.
Okay, so I have to admit it, I didn't know what to expect before my call with Josh. It was his first podcast, and usually my interviews are talking to people who have 20 years of career experience. But man, was I impressed with everything I heard from Josh. He wasn't nervous, he was poised, he was insightful, and he's really just a fascinating guy. I was thinking maybe I could get a college kid to talk for 30 minutes and maybe fill 30 minutes in an interview, and then even then I thought it would be like pulling teeth. And then we hit the 1 hour mark, and I think we could have talked for an hour after that. Maybe we'll have to check in again with Josh a few years from now to hear about his life after college. It's definitely going to be an interesting journey. Thanks for the chat, Josh. Looking forward to reading about your continued success. For show notes, visit jeffalytics.com/PIP.